Greetings! Darryl Davis here with another episode of the history of Gosford Musical Society. Now today, as you can probably tell by that slide that's on there, I'm going to talk about the famous Gosford Musical Society rehearsal shed, which we call the shed. Now this was built in 1982, and a lot of the material came from, there was an old store here in Gosford called Walton's. And a lot of their bricks and things that they had, which were now dismantled, we got. And I can remember going along on a Saturday with a hammer and a chisel and knocking away some of the mortar that was on those bricks, which apparently were used, which is very good. One of the things that we needed desperately was a place in which to rehearse and to build things. But rehearse was very difficult because we had to go to we went to a school. We went to Valley View Primary School, which is very nice of them, but you didn't have your own place. And so in 1982, when this opened, wow, what a fantastic achievement that was. And you know, we've had a lot of visitors from other musical societies throughout New South Wales that have come to us to rent stuff and whatever, but we've taken them through a tour through places like our shed, and they're just their eyes open and say, wow, we haven't got anything like that. So it's very important to us as a society to have this wonderful place. Now, I'll tell you, when we built this too, a kitchen, we've got a kitchen in there. Actually, we've got 3 rooms altogether, which you'll see. Out in the middle of that room there, that's the building area. And as you'll see, that's got lots of materials in there, and our sets are all built there. In the middle room, it's a very long, narrow room. That's called the committee room. And that's where we hold meetings. And that's where we have refreshments are served or whatever. And there's a kitchen. The very first kitchen that we had came from Kevin Booth and Nancy Booth. It was from their home. They decided to renovate, so the kitchen went to the Musical Society. And we used that for quite a while. The furthest room is called the mirror room. And again, I'll take you through that. That's where most of the rehearsing is done. Well, here we have. To dedicate this opening of this shed, and by the way, we got a government grant for this too. That helped. I'm trying to remember the actual amount. I think it was $20,000 in 1982. I'm not totally sure, but I think it was pretty much around that. But we had a night. It was called a presentation. It was called Spotlight Parade, and that's an example there on here of the grand opening. So what that was a number of the people involved in shows put on some of the skits or some of the scenes out of famous musicals. And to let you know, and it was filmed back in 1982. And the film, you know, wasn't real good in 82. And some of you will remember that when you used to film then and you made a copy, it's sort of it wasn't as good as the original. And if you made about 5 copies, by the time you got to the 5th one, it was very grainy. Now, I was in that production that we had. I was one of the singer-dancers in it. And the only way that I could work out of the 20 people who I was that there was one guy that was always out of step with everybody. And I knew that that had to be me. But at any rate, in this opening, and there's a picture of one of the scenes there, they did a scene out of Annie. And that's a lady named Nanette Drillsma, who actually used to be an entertainer at Old Sydney Town. And she came along, and you can see some of the costumes that we would have actually hired at that time. But have a look at that microphone. That's one of the early ones that we used when we were actually performing then in the high school hall. And the microphone, you virtually had to be on top of it to be heard, not like today's directional mics or body mics that we have. This is another picture out of that, 2 pictures out of that presentation. And these both have an interesting story. On the left-hand side, Fiddler on the Roof one here, that's Alf Taylor, former Citizen of the Year of Gosford. Wonderful man. He did a segment out of Fiddler on the Roof, and he did it so well that the committee decided the following year that they were going to put on Fiddler on the Roof. And he auditioned, and he became Tevye. And it was always, even though he did like 30 shows for GMS, that was always his favorite. On the other side is one of the most talented people we've ever had, Ian Hawkins, designer, actor. He also used to run the entertainment at Old Sydney Town. So he was a very, very clever man. And he did a scene out of Oliver. And lo and behold, the following year, they did Oliver, and he played the main part of Fagin. So that was interesting. Now, this is our shed, our building area. Now, this is where we build our sets. Now, it looks pretty congested, because it is. This is a picture, recent picture, of building the set for Les Miserables. Not only, and you can see it's partially built. There's like the barricade on the right-hand side that was used a lot in the show. And on the left-hand side, that's some of the big buildings that were going to be in there. And I'm there directing it with some of the people. And so we had the actors there on the partially built barricade. But isn't it great to actually have your own space that you can practice, you can rehearse on your set? That was pretty amazing. Props and all are also made there. And we have a lot of properties. We have a huge, I'd say it's a 3-room area upstairs of our shed that have props in it. And it's just great, ranging from muskets to baskets to jewelry, you name it. And again, we rent a lot of those things out because they're made here for us, or made at GMS for us. This is a picture of what happens when the set's built. You have people from the show. This young lady was in Les Mis as one of the ensemble. And people come and they donate their time and they paint and do lots of things. Just reminded when I took this photo out, reminded me of when we did Singing in the Rain, and we had a lot of dancers in it who rarely ever painted her stuff, you know. And I remember there were about 5 of them that volunteered to come and paint. And I think by the end of the day, there was more paint on them than there was on the actual objects. But they had a lot of fun, let's put it that way. This is a picture of the barricade that was completed. And these guys got on the Laycock Street stage where we presented it last November. And they wanted to take a shot just for them to keep for good. But you can see how big the objects can be when they're made in the shed, which is quite amazing. Now, we have here the mirror room. Now that is, you can see by the why it's called the mirror room. Sometimes those mirrors are taken away and used on stage, but this is a typical rehearsal time. So what the musical director and the vocal coach would be on the far right-hand side with piano, or in the center sometimes, and you have your characters there singing along. What's really wonderful today is that you only have to do that like once in a rehearsal, and then they make tapes or whatever, and then they can go home and practice themselves. Something that wasn't available back when that shed was first built, of course. But that is a typical vocal rehearsal. And that's what you always do. You try and go through most of the songs first before you go and do a lot of the movement. Now here's used for another reason. We have within that mirror room too, and you can see the mirrors have been taken away, probably used on the stage, or broken. No, they're taken away, used on stage. But as you can see, the table down the middle is filled with probably makeup and glitter and stuff, because they were having a session there on makeup. So people come in, people that know quite a bit of stuff about makeup or whatever, they come in and show the actors how to make up. And then the actors can make themselves up. See, in the old days, you had a makeup team of 4 or 5 people, and they would make up every single person. But now, we basically make up ourselves, unless it's so elaborate that you need somebody to do it. And this is a Les Miserables, doing the idea of if you're in the the dreary parts of the city, then you're made up differently than if you're one of the well-to-do. But it's a lot of fun to watch that sort of thing. Here we have, oops, there we go. When that set is complete, you can see our Musical Society spot there. That is the theater, the Laycock Street Community Theater dock door, or stage door as it's got there. But our stuff has to come out of that and put on. Now this is part of the gate. It was a 2-part gate that went into Les Miserables. It's great to have that theater right next door to our home base. It's just wonderful. We don't have to put it on a truck and move it somewhere else and do something. So that's great. See, we have a group called the Tuesday-Thursday group. And it's sort of like, I guess we use our common vernacular today, a men's shed, except for there's women there as well. But these wonderful people, most of them retired, come along every Tuesday from 8:30 till 4, and they put our sets together, make our props. And I got to tell you, without them, without these volunteers, we wouldn't be a society. We couldn't afford to do the stuff we do. These people make all the difference in the world to us. Again, every Tuesday and Thursday, they come and build things like us. And I've been in there at times where there have been like 30, 35 people and they're working. Some are doing backdrops where they're painting them outside. Usually they roll out the material and paint them. And inside, they do a lot of the woodworking. It's just a cacophony of noise because there's so much happening there. So that's a wonderful thing. Now this is an example of another use of the shed, and that is, this was from Shout, which was back in 2006, I think. And it was a wonderful show about Johnny O'Keefe. And this set is partially built, and there we see them actually using it in the shed, being able to move around. Now I think probably, just to mention about that mirror room before, it's a proper spring floor. So dancers love it because they can jump up and down and not hurt themselves like if it was on concrete. So basically, the shed is so useful to us. And upstairs, if we were to walk up the stairs from that picture there, we would have the wardrobe area. And there would have to be, and this is a wild guess, but it'd be pretty close, over 20,000 costumes up there, full costumes, that have been made and collected over the years, ranging from fur, which we don't use anymore, but fur, down to medieval gowns to modern day stuff. And again, we rent out a lot of things to other societies. Well, basically, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone, that's the story of the GMS shed. Thank goodness we have it, and thank you for listening.